What's good? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the free hour. It's your boy Trevor Turner. Super excited, man, for this video. We are getting started today on our emotional intelligence series. We went through a whole ABC series on just some of the basic elements of the free hour, of self-improvement, some of the things that help us to get going, some of the things that we can use to kind of switch our life up. And now we're getting into more intermediate territory. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty, man, of how to just continue to live in a better way, to continue to live at that higher wavelength, to continue to live at that higher vibration. Because what's going to happen is when you start to move in different ways, not only are you going to attract different people, but you got to remember this is like when you start to clean up a house, when you start to clean up the outside of that house, the inside of that house, when you start to update those things, there are going to be people that are still attracted to those qualities, those things, those upgrades that you've done, that can't afford to be in that house, that should never even have considered coming to look at that house. And because we are starting to look for the best in people, because we are starting to look for the God in people, because we are starting to look for our reflections in people before we start to shut them out of our lives, one of the things that's going to happen is we're going to have people who test our emotions, and the way that we manage, the way that we react, the way that we act, and the way that we carry ourselves when it comes to our feelings. So that's why we're getting into it, man. That's why emotional intelligence is so important, because emotional intelligence is not only about the way that we perceive things and the way that we understand the way we feel, but it's also about the way that we manage our emotions. It's also about the way that we act or react, depending on our state of being at that time, our emotional state at that time. And then it also deals with not just our own emotions, but other people's emotions. It's how we perceive, manage, and act when it comes to dealing with our own emotions and other people's emotions. And that's super important, because when it comes to emotions is the driving force. Emotions are the driving force for a great many people in this world. And knowing how to navigate the way that other people feel, knowing how to navigate how you feel and not let that be the driving force for you, is super important. It's going to put you a step ahead of everybody else. It's going to put you a step ahead of where you were last year, because we don't compare ourselves to other people. We just compare ourselves to where we used to be. Right? It's going to put you exponentially ahead. It's going to put you leaps and bounds ahead of where you were before. When you start to be able to unpack your emotions, when you start to be able to not only just have to avoid the things that trigger you, but to know the things that trigger you and why they trigger you, and what about these situations trigger you, what about these situations need to be avoided, what can you do to smooth them over, what can you do to switch them around so that they don't have you feeling the way that they used to feel. How can you approach them different? How can you act on them differently? How can you act on the world differently instead of just reacting based upon the way you feel? And that's why emotional intelligence is so important. So how we're going to start, man, on emotional intelligence, we're going to start with awareness. So when it comes to your feelings, how well do you really know yourself? When it comes to your emotions, how well do you really know yourself? How well do you understand your emotions? How well do you understand why you feel the way you feel about certain situations or things or people? Beyond the obvious ones, they did this and it made me angry. They did this and it broke my heart. They did this and it made me sad. Why do you feel certain ways about people that you have never met when they do something to trigger you, that reminds you of maybe something that happened, or you don't even consciously remember that it's reminding you of something that happened before? How well do you know yourself? How well do you understand your own emotions? And in this video, we're going to learn about the importance of awareness. We're going to talk about why it's the foundation, why it's the building stone. We're going to talk about the two different types of awareness, and we're going to talk about practical strategies to develop the awareness. Emotional awareness is the ability to recognize and understand our own emotions and the emotions of other people. So remember, we said that one of the first parts of emotional intelligence was to understand, perceive, and understand our own feelings. Awareness is about perceiving our feelings. Awareness is about perceiving and understanding our feelings. It's about taking that step back, having that non-judgmental look at the things that are going on within ourselves, at the things that are going on emotionally, when we're in that turmoil, when we're in that storm, being able to take that step back and unpack and understand why we feel the way that we feel, why certain situations trigger us, even though we haven't necessarily dealt with those situations before. And sometimes it's very easy. Sometimes it is extremely easy. You had an ex that used to do all of this, and then he cheated on you. And it triggers you because now you meet another guy and he does all the same stuff that your ex used to do, all of the same green flags that turned out to be hiding all of the exact same red flags. And now you start to feel worry. Now you start to feel fear. Now that old anger comes up. Now that you want to start snapping and flashing, you want to get jealous. Some of those things are very, very easy to understand and be aware of, but there are some things that are not. There are some situations that you're going to go through and be like, why is it that I'm feeling like this? Why is it that I cannot take that step back with my coworkers or with my boss or with my friends or with my kids' friends' parents, or when I'm taking my kids to their sports and I'm seeing these things that these parents are saying and I'm getting upset, or even when I'm scrolling social media and I see something and I get so upset that I can barely breathe, that I can't even my eyes start squinting and my hand starts getting tight, and not realizing that those things have a root. They all have a root feeling. A lot of the feelings that we feel that we can identify are secondary feelings. Awareness of not only our feelings, but where those feelings come from and what the root is of our feeling is the first step, the building block and the stepping stone to being able to understand our emotions. It's about understanding the emotions of others and their dynamics in social interactions. And this puts you ahead of the pack, because when you can take the step back and you can understand that everybody's emotions aren't necessarily something to take personal. They're not attacks. They're not something you need to defend yourself against. But everybody has emotions just the way that you have emotions. People can be having a bad day and have emotional reactions to something that you do, and that emotional reaction actually doesn't even have anything to do with you. And it can also be on the flip side of that coin, when you can meet somebody and they're just pouring all this out into you and they're just so happy and there's all this joy and this high vibration. That could not even have anything to do with you too. So when they switch up, or if they switch up, or if they come at you with something different or an attitude, you can realize that that was not about you to begin with. You can realize that they have emotions too, that they could be going through things too, that it could be something that happened that doesn't even have anything to do with you, or it could have been something that you did that triggered them the way that something that they did could trigger you, that reminds them of somebody that they dealt with in their past, just like they could remind you of somebody that you dealt with in your past. And you realize, when you're building these social interactions and you're building these connections and you're building these networks and you're building these people that you might not necessarily want to necessarily network with, but you have to work with, or you have to be around, or you have to coexist with, and realizing that these things are not meant to intentionally either bother you or irritate you. These things are just things that they do, things that they are going through, things that they are feeling. And being able to have that awareness, being able to take that step back and look at it from a non-judgmental perspective and point of view. So when we talk about why awareness is so crucial for personal growth, relationships, and professional success when it comes to emotional intelligence, we go back to Daniel Goleman. Daniel Goleman, he's a psychologist and author. He's actually the one who popularized the concept of emotional intelligence with his book, Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. He did some work on emotional intelligence, and he emphasizes that awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, like we said before, it is about perceiving, understanding, and managing. Perceiving is the first part. To be able to perceive, you have to be aware. To be able to manage, you have to be aware. To be able to understand, you have to be aware of what's going on and why it's going on. And then we talk about the role of the brain in emotional awareness. The prefrontal cortex, which is involved in regulating emotions, and the amygdala, I don't really know how to say that, is responsible for processing emotions. Now, Dr. Richard Davidson, he did some research. He is a neuroscientist. He's known for his work on the neural mechanisms of emotional and well-being. And he did a study at the University of Wisconsin He found that individuals with higher emotional awareness have more activity in the prefrontal cortex, which helps them manage their emotions more effectively. Now, one of the links that we are going to make here, and it could be a leap, but I believe that it's something that is true, and I believe that it's something that's shown, is that you, through awareness, through building awareness, through dealing with and unpacking emotions, you can actually make those things start to work more efficiently. You can make those things fire more. You can make the connections, the neural pathways more efficient. You can make more of them. You can make them work for you in your favor. You're not born, and this is where we talk about the growth mindset in the previous series. You are not born at your limit of emotional intelligence. You are not born at the ceiling. You are born at the floor. So the more that you are aware, the more that you perceive, the more that you manage, the more that you identify, the more that you understand, the more that you build those things up in the way that they can work for you. And then, of course, the next step, high self-awareness leads to better decision-making, better leadership, and better overall life satisfaction. Tasi Urick is an organizational psychologist and author. She's known for her work on self-awareness in leadership. And her research on self-awareness in leaders, it shows that high self-awareness is correlated with more successful leadership and better organizational outcomes. And see, the thing about it is this, is that the awareness is split into two parts. It is not only how you perceive yourself, it's not only how you perceive and understand and manage yourself, it is how you perceive, understand, and manage the fickle emotions, the fickle feelings of other people, and get them to work the way that they need to work to make whatever it is that you're trying to do go in the best possible way, to turn those people into a well-oiled machine, to use those people to their best advantage at their most productive, and to let those people go home and let those people get their space at their least productive. Being able to ride the wave in the roller coaster of emotion when dealing with people. Because here's the thing, you need to make connections. You need to deal with people. You need to have a network of people. And being able to look at their emotions, understand their emotions, and manage their emotions the same way that you can do yours is so super important. And one of the things we actually talk about, one of the reasons that I think a lot of people kind of miss it when it comes to leadership is that when we look at emotional intelligence, for the most part, we think of emotional intelligence as regulating our own emotions, or being able to express our own emotions, being able to understand our own emotions. That what you did, it made me angry. So I'm going to express it to you. I'm going to express why it made me angry. I'm going to break that down to you, and I'm going to expect you to fix it. We think that that is emotional intelligence. We think that not flying off the handle is emotional intelligence, while we sit there and try to explain to somebody why they're wrong, or why the things that they are feeling are incorrect, or why the things that they are going through, when we start to tell them about themselves, is they're emotionally unstable. They're the ones who need to work on what they got going on. When what is happening is we are so one-sided in our view of emotional intelligence. And this is where we miss it with leadership, because I am able to weather the storm. I am able to weather the storm, but I'm not helping anybody else be able to weather the storm. I'm not understanding why anybody else is going through storms. I am not looking and perceiving and understanding and being able to manage these people when they are going through storms. I am the only one who is standing tall when the weather starts to hit. And oftentimes what I do is I start to look at the people around me as the storm, instead of looking at those people around me as support through the storm, or letting those people use me as support through the storm, or knowing that I need to lead these people through the storm. What happens is that I become so self-centered, and I become so just centered on my own emotional intelligence and my own steadiness and my own level-headedness and my own connection to the vision, and not letting my feelings get in the way, that I look at these other people as a storm, as distractions. And I don't allow them to feel. I don't allow them to express. I don't allow them to do any of those things without actually feeling attacked. And that's where we miss it with leadership. That's where we miss it with when it comes to emotional intelligence, is that we need to realize that the other people around us are not the storm. Life is the storm. The other people around us are not the ones who we need to like manage the way we feel about them. We need to manage how we feel about situations. It needs to be a team effort. It needs to be collaboration. We need to be working together. And a lot of us are so focused on competing with each other. A lot of us are so focused on winning the argument, winning at life, getting the upper hand in the relationship. Who's going to be submissive and who's going to be dominant? Who's going to be the breadwinner and who's going to be at home? Instead of just saying we're a team and we need to beat life together. We're a team and we need to get ahead together. We're a team and we need to weather the storms together. We look at the other person as the storm. We look at the other person as the obstacle that I need to get over today. We look at the other person as if they go up, now I feel small. If they grow, I feel little. We look at the other person as that competition because we have not developed the other part of emotional intelligence. The first way to do it is awareness. And that's why it's so crucial. So obviously, when it comes to our self-awareness, we look at the importance of being aware of our emotions, when we look at the importance of being aware of our strengths, our values, and the impact of our actions on others, and then most importantly, I think, is our weaknesses. The importance of having that self-awareness when it comes to emotional intelligence, that impact of knowing how things affect us and the impact of knowing how we affect others, the impact of knowing how we affect the world, the impact of knowing the things that we can do for the world, and the impact of knowing the things we need help with is so important. It is so big. You need to know what you're good at. You need to know what you need help with. You need to know where you lack at. You need to know these things. Knowing what it is that you need to bolster is so important. And then also the ability to be aware of others' emotions, social dynamics, and the ability to empathize, especially for people who are trying to become leaders. Especially for people who are trying to become leaders in what it is that they're trying to do in their prospective field, or they are trying to become business owners, or they are trying to become people who invest in things. They are trying to become people who manage people. They are trying to become people who employ people. You have to be able to be aware of what's going on with other people. The best bosses are not those who necessarily just coddle everybody, but the best bosses are those who can recognize the mood in the room. They're the ones that can walk into a business and they can realize like, okay, something is wrong here. Something is not going right here. It's the feeling of it, the way that these people feel. Like, yeah, they're here, they're going through the motions, but they're not going to make me the money that I need to make to get financially free through this business because there's something going on emotionally. And that is super important. Knowing the feelings of other people is super important. It is just as important as being aware of your own. It is just as important as being aware of your own strengths and your own weaknesses. It is just as important to know the strengths and weaknesses of your team, to know the things that they're going through, to be able to empathize and put yourself in their shoes. A lot of times we just don't do that when it comes to other people. We just focus so much on ourselves, we don't give a fuck what they're going through. Fuck what they're going through. This is what I got going on. If they're either going to get down or lay down, they're either going to get with it or they're going to get left. They're either going to get right or get left. My bad. And a lot of times we don't take into account that they are going through things too. That we don't take into account that these are people we may need down the road. We don't take into account that we may not succeed in the way we want to succeed without them. Obviously, you can still do it without people, but you're never going to do it as good as you can without people. A couple of different strategies that I use to develop awareness and mindfulness of when it comes to like emotional intelligence, when it comes to your own emotions. So one of the things that I used to do, and I got this from Eckhart Tolle, from The Power of Now. If you've never read that book, I suggest you do. It's a great book. It's something that helped me to become present, to become aware of what it is that is going on within my own head. A lot of times we have these thoughts that are going through our head that are a reaction to our feelings, that are a result of our feelings, our fears, our anxieties, our angers, our sadnesses. They're a result of our jealousies. They're a result even of our happiness and our joys. But one of the things that we have to realize is that we are not actually those thoughts. We are not actually those feelings. We are experiencing those thoughts and we are experiencing those feelings. So one of the things that I like to do, and I like to do this every morning, is I like to just focus in on my body. And I like to let those thoughts just go. Those thoughts are going to go. One of the things that happens is, especially if you're trying meditation for the first time, I know this happened for me, is that your thoughts are going to race. You're just going to be thinking about stuff like, damn, did I forget to do this? Or damn, did I forget to do that? Or man, you know, she was tripping today. My boss was acting an ass today. Or this person, I can't believe that customer did that to me. I can't believe this happened. And you'll start to experience feelings behind those thoughts. Or you'll have feelings and the thoughts will manifest as a result of those feelings, which will make those feelings amplify and make you feel those feelings even stronger. So what you do is you just let those thoughts go. You acknowledge the thought. You acknowledge that that thought is there. You acknowledge that that feeling is there. And you just let it go. You don't try to judge it. You don't try to understand where it came from just yet. You don't try to manage it. You don't try to stuff it away. You don't try to, even if the thought is a crazy thought, even if the thought is like, damn, no, why would I even think that? You do not allow that thought to gain any type of traction. And the traction could be whether you're latching onto it to feel the feelings that that thought is intended to make you feel, or even trying to fight against it. Because when you fight against it, you give it so much more validity. A lot of the times what happens is that these thoughts that go by, like, damn, she must be cheating on me. And it's like, no, you know what? No, she ain't cheating on me. She was with me all day yesterday. Like, no. And what happens is you start to fight that thought. And in fighting that thought, you give it validity, you give it focus, you give it space. You let it get this space in your head instead of just passing by and just being something that comes and goes. Instead of letting it just be a wave. Let it just be a wave. Let it come, let it go. And realize like, okay, that thought is there. That thought is there, let it go. That thought is there. And that thought is there because I have a feeling that is attached to it. Whether that feeling is jealousy, whether that feeling of jealousy is rooted in insecurity, which is rooted in fear. Whether that insecurity is rooted in anger because of an ex, which is also rooted in fear. Because you're afraid that you will have the same thing happen to you. Now, you don't judge yourself for having these feelings. You don't judge yourself for having these thoughts. You just let them go. You let them go. You let them go and you acknowledge yourself as the observer of your thoughts and the observer of your feelings. And what will start to happen is that you will eventually, and this is not something that happens overnight, it's not something that happens in a day, it's not something that happens in a week, it's something that takes some time. And for me, I was able to easily do it because I didn't have nothing going on. I was able to just sit there and focus on this stuff all day. Yeah, I had problems. I had issues with people being locked up. Obviously, that stuff happens. But at the same point in time, I was able to just sit there and chill and just lay in my rack, lay in my bunk and just let these thoughts go and recognize these thoughts and be aware and be mindful of what it was that was going on within my own emotional state. And it took a lot of unpacking before I was able to even get to the next step. So that's what you do on that first step. The next thing that I did is journaling. One of the things that I do actually every morning while I'm on the way to work is I write a little quick blurb in my journal, whether it be on my phone, whether it be in the journal that I got in my backpack. And a lot of times there'll be a prompt because once you get to the point where you're so aware of what's going on with your feelings is that you're not going to have to just write a whole page on what it is that's going on in here. But at the very beginning, you're not going to need a prompt. It's going to be some stuff that's going on. It's going to be some feelings that came up that even you dreamed about. It's going to be some stuff that came up. Maybe somebody cut you off on the way to work. You haven't journaled in the morning before you left the house and somebody cut you off on the way to work. Write about that shit. Or your boss gave you this weird look, or you woke up to a weird text from somebody, or woke up to a weird email from somebody, and it just has you on edge. You need to journal that shit. You need to get that shit out. You need to be aware of what's going on inside of you. And even if it's like, I feel like this text was weird. Like, why did this motherfucker send it? It made me feel like, woo, woo. I feel like this, that, whatever's going on. And then what'll happen is that once you get past the surface level shit, like, I feel like this motherfucker is weird. And just keep writing. And eventually you will get to how you feel about this stuff. And you will get to why you feel that way why you feel that way about that stuff. You will start to get to the root causes of stuff. You will get to the underlying emotion, the root emotion. Because a lot of times what happens is our stuff is rooted in fear, and is rooted in anger, and it's rooted in sadness. Those are like our base emotions. Like when you feel like a motherfucker's weird for sending you an email, and it's like, why would he send me that email? I hope he didn't copy nobody else in that email. Okay, now we've started to get to the root of it. There's an insecurity there. There's a worry there. There's an anxiety there that could be having something to do with the security of your job. So, okay, now you take that step back. Like if this motherfucker sends this to somebody else, or somebody else sees this, or if I respond in a certain way, like I'll get in trouble. Now we get even to the root cause of it. It's not about that motherfucker being weird. It's about you being worried about losing this job, because this job is already flimsy as shit. You don't have any job security. Employers aren't loyal to people anymore. And then it's like, okay, now you get even to the deeper part, and you write about all of that stuff, and the job market is shit. And I don't know what I would do if I lose this job. Even though this job is shitty as fuck, I hate this fucking job. But if I lose it, I'm one check away from losing my house. I'm one check away from getting that eviction notice. I'm one check away from losing my kids, because I just left my husband and they're all I got. And all I got is this fucking dumbass job. And this motherfucker is sending me these weird ass fucking emails. And if he copies somebody else on the shit and I respond in a certain way, I could lose my job. And now we've traced it back to fear. We've traced it back to fear. You fear all of these things happening. So that email triggers that cascade, that domino effect that leads back to that root emotion. And one of the things that we can do to identify it is you can take some time to journal some stuff. And you can even journal in your mind. You just got to remember where that rabbit hole leads to. Because it's never about like somebody sending you a weird email if it wasn't attached to a deeper root feeling that has something to do with your life as a whole, or in general, or the greater picture of what's going on. Somebody sending you a weird email would make you laugh. If you weren't worried about losing your job, if you weren't worried about the way the job market is, if you weren't like, didn't have eyes and see how employers are and see how they treat employees today, if you didn't have eyes to see that automation is replacing so many employees, if you didn't have eyes to see that other people are coming in, either younger people are going to try and steal your job, or more qualified people are going to try and steal your job, or people who don't have such an attitude are going to try and steal your job, or whatever the case, or you already know they don't like you. Right? You need to get to that root. Because if none of those things were a thing, that email wouldn't be shit to you. Point blank, period. And journaling helps you get to that root. And last, we're going to talk about how to apply awareness in your daily life. One of the things that you can do is you can start to make mental note of triggers. Like we did with the building the awareness with our mindfulness technique that we learned from Eckhart Tolle, is we don't judge these things. We don't try to stop these things from happening. We don't latch onto these things either. We don't let them build into anything else on a deeper level. We just realize what it was. We realize where it came from. And we said, okay, that situation happened and it triggered me. And then you let it go. If you can't let it go, you write it down. You journal it and get it out that way. Or if you need to think about why is it that if you can't let it go and those things happen, you need to ask why. Why do I feel this way about this thing? Why did that situation make me feel the way that I feel right now? Or how do I really feel about this situation? Why are my hands clenched? Why is my breathing shallow? Why am I so angry about what it is that's going on right now? And you'll find out 9 times out of 10, it's not even about that person. It's not about that person. It's not about what they did. It's about some shit that happened to you before that you never healed from. It's about some shit that happens to you on a consistent basis that you don't heal from. It's about some shit that happened to you that you may not even remember. It may just be a subconscious thing. It may be some abandonment issues because your pops was gone. It may be some issues of fear because one of your family members was abusive. So whenever they came home, it was like living with a bear, and it removed your fight from your fight or flight because you couldn't run from the bear. The bear was living with you. It was there every night. That trauma that happened when you was a kid, it could bring that up. Any of those different things, 9 times out of 10, is not about that dude. It's not about that female or what they said or what they did. And obviously, there's that 1 time out of 10 where they just did some egregious shit, and that's why you feel the way that you feel. But 9 times out of 10, it's not even about that. 9 times out of 10 is about some other shit that you're internalizing, that you're keeping with you, that you're carrying with you. So one of the things that you do is you start to take your inventory of why it is that you feel the way you feel about situations, why it is that you feel the way that you feel about things going on. You don't try to do anything about them yet. You just be aware, just be mindful. Because for the most part, a lot of us don't even pay attention to why we feel the way that we feel. A lot of us don't even pay attention to the fact we got feelings. We just react. We just get down where we're mad at. We just do what it is that we got to do. Like, this shit happened, I react, I move, I got to do something. We don't think about, we're not aware of the things that happen. Being aware gives you the opportunity to take that space, make the space between stimulus and reaction. And then making that space lets you be proactive. So even if you're not unpacking everything yet, being aware is the first step. And that's how we're going to start to implement it in our daily life. All right? So that's the thing that I want you to do throughout this week, throughout this month. I want you to make the inventory of what it is that's going on up here with your thoughts. Journal every day. Even write down just one thing, one word, a feeling. What did you feel throughout the majority of the day? What do you feel at your lunch break? What did you feel during the morning? If you felt angry, write angry. If you felt worried, write worried. If you felt happy, feel happy. If you felt bored, write bored. Whatever it is, just get into the habit of doing it. Get into the habit of being aware of what it is that you're feeling and being aware of what's going on up here. Being aware of the things that trigger you and how they make you react and how your body reacts. So that way, when you're not even able to catch the feeling when it happens because the shit that happened just threw you from being able to recognize the feelings into just feeling it, it's like, oh, okay, my fists are clenched. That means something happened, I'm angry. Even being aware gives you that pause. It gives you that pause to get you to the point of knowing what it is that you can go through to make you feel like that. Thank you once again for watching the Free Hour. It's your boy Trevor Turner, Emotional Intelligence series. And remember, awareness is the greatest agent for change. Thank you once again for watching, man. Let me know how this worked for you to go through with awareness. Let me know some of the things that you're feeling. Let me know some of the things that you unintentionally latched onto. Let me know if you even got to the root cause of some stuff. Let me know if journaling works for you. Let me know if the mindfulness exercise works for you. Or let me know if there's something else that works for you too. How is it that you're able to maintain awareness and mindfulness of what it is that you're going through? If you like it, share your thoughts with me, share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel. Deuces.